Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating modern mystery. Why isn't getting richer making us any happier? But more importantly, we're going to see how ancient wisdom from all across the globe can actually help us solve this deeply frustrating paradox. We'll be digging into some really incredible research and data today, taking some pretty complex philosophical and economic concepts and breaking them down into clear, actionable insights you can actually use. So let's kick things off with a big question. Does more money actually buy happiness? Well, let me introduce you to Alex. Picture Alex as a modern professional who just landed a massive promotion and a really significant raise. By all conventional logic, right, Alex should be absolutely ecstatic. But instead, sitting there in that slightly larger office, Alex feels completely empty, just stressed, anxious, and totally unfulfilled. I want you to keep Alex in mind as we go through this, because Alex's story brings the macroeconomic data we're about to explore down to a deeply personal level. What Alex is experiencing isn't just a personal rut, it's actually a massively documented global phenomenon. And this phenomenon actually dates all the way back to 1974. That was the year the American economist Richard Easterlin proposed what we now call the happiness income paradox. Looking at some really extensive data, Easterlin showed that while a nation's personal income might grow rapidly over time, the overall happiness of that nation often just totally stagnates. Basically, once you cross a certain threshold of having your basic needs met, the extra money simply stops buying extra joy. It's a paradox that has literally baffled economists and psychologists for decades. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the happiness income paradox, then look at modern Western happiness conceptions. From there, we'll explore the Confucian path to joy, followed by Stoicism and emotional resilience, before we finally build a new framework for well-being. All right, let's dive into part one, the happiness income paradox. When we zoom out and look at the global data, the contrasts are honestly puzzling. Take China, for example. They saw absolutely unprecedented economic growth over the last few decades, literally lifting millions out of poverty, and yet reported happiness actually dropped. Meanwhile, a country like Denmark boasts both a high GDP and exceptionally high happiness. So why does this paradox hit some cultures so much harder than others? Well, the core mechanism here is social comparison. Think about it. If your absolute income grows, but your relative social position is completely stagnant, mostly because everyone around you is also getting wealthier, you're basically just running on a hedonistic treadmill. As the average income of a society goes up, our baseline for what constitutes a good life just goes right up with it. The joy of that new wealth is almost immediately offset by the realization that our relative position in the social hierarchy hasn't really changed at all. Moving on to part two, modern Western happiness conceptions. Now, modern Western society typically attempts to solve this whole dilemma through intense individualism and the pursuit of hedonic pleasure. The underlying assumption here is that if we can just maximize our personal utility, buy the right products, experience enough positive emotions, we'll finally be happy. And the primary psychological tool used to measure this is called subjective well-being, or SWB. SWB evaluates the presence of positive emotions, the absence of negative emotions, and a general cognitive evaluation of your life satisfaction. But here is the massive flaw. It measures happiness as a subjective, hedonic experience. It's really just about feeling good right now in the moment. But humans adapt. We buy a shiny new car, we feel a huge spike in our SWB, and then we adapt to it. It just becomes the new normal, and our happiness levels drop right back down to where they started. This model fundamentally breaks down because it relies on external, fleeting factors. Let's pivot over to part three, the Confucian path to joy. So if the Western hedonic model is flawed, ancient Eastern philosophy offers a completely different antidote. In traditional Chinese culture, mainstream thought never really advocated for the direct pursuit of personal pleasure as a life goal. Instead, they focused heavily on this concept called Ren. Ren roughly translates to human-heartedness. It's described as a gentle, pure state of mind that acts as the origin of all virtues. In Confucian philosophy, happiness is not the ultimate goal that you need to be frantically chasing. Rather, happiness is a natural, spontaneous byproduct of possessing the moral virtue of Ren. It's about living in harmony with your environment, upholding your moral bottom line, and having a clear conscience regardless of what your external material wealth looks like. The differences between these two paradigms are pretty striking, right? The modern Western view is highly individualistic, hedonic, and totally pleasure-driven. The Confucian view, on the other hand, is collectivist, virtue-driven, and hyper-focused on harmony. Under the Confucian model, your happiness relies heavily on strong intergenerational relationships and filial piety, which means having genuine emotional connections and respect for your elders, along with community resilience. It's not about how much money you make at all. It's about the quality of your relationships and your character. It acts as this incredible stabilizing force that protects you from the constant exhausting ups and downs of the economic treadmill. Which brings us to part 4, Stoicism and emotional resilience. Let's check back in with our avatar, Alex. Unfortunately, the company Alex works for just announced mass layoffs, and Alex suddenly lost that high-paying job. The income is gone. The status is gone. So how do we handle this? By looking to the ancient Western antidote for modern anxiety, the dichotomy of control. This is a core Stoic practice of distinguishing absolutely clearly between what is in our control and what is not. Alex cannot control the macroeconomic environment. Alex cannot control the company's executive decisions or the reality of the layoff itself. But Alex absolutely can control the response. By accepting the uncontrollable layoff, Alex frees up a massive amount of mental energy to proactively focus on what is controllable, things like updating a resume, reaching out to a professional network, and reframing the whole situation as an opportunity for change rather than a complete disaster. And Alex achieves this through 4 really practical Stoic steps. First up is perspective taking, shifting the view from a career-ending disaster to a chance for growth, literally turning anxiety into anticipation. Second is gratitude, focusing daily on what is abundant, like health, great friends, and valuable skills, rather than obsessing over what is lacking. Third is control sphere analysis. This means literally writing down what is actionable versus what is completely out of your hands. And fourth is acceptance. This is an empowered acknowledgement of reality without any judgment. It allows Alex to move forward instead of being paralyzed by stress. And finally, part 5, a new framework for well-being. So, what does this all mean for us? How do we actually use this information? Well, we have to synthesize these distinct paradigms into a cohesive modern strategy that we can actually apply to our lives today to beat that happiness-income paradox. First, we borrow from Confucianism. Base your daily actions on moral virtue, cultivating your own ren, rather than the blind pursuit of wealth. Second, actively strengthen your intergenerational family and community bonds. Remember, true wealth in the East is measured in the harmony of your relationships. Then, we merge this with our Stoic toolkit. Accept external economic shocks without judgment. The market is going to fluctuate, jobs will come and go, but your internal peace shouldn't depend on them. And finally, focus your precious energy strictly on actionable, controllable steps. By merging the deep community roots of the East with the impenetrable mental fortress of the West, you become highly resilient to the totally empty pursuits of modern consumerism. The Stoic philosopher Seneca really hit the nail on the head when he said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." I think this encapsulates our journey today beautifully. Economic plateaus, lost jobs, personal hardships, they aren't roadblocks preventing you from finding happiness. They're actually the exact friction required to build a meaningful, resilient, and deeply human-hearted life. Which leaves us with a final challenge for you today. What is one thing you can control today to cultivate your own ren? It's time to step off the hedonic treadmill, stop waiting for the next big raise to magically make you happy, take a hard look at your sphere of control, look at your community, and take just one concrete step toward human-heartedness today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll catch you next time.